Donald Trump has said that the United States will restart its nuclear weapons testing program after a break of more than 30 years. He says the tests are necessary to keep pace with China and Russia. In a statement published online, Trump wrote, and I quote, "Because of other countries' testing programs, I have instructed the Department of War to start testing our nuclear weapons on an equal basis. That process will begin immediately." Trump also spoke about it later on Air Force One.
Others, they seem to all be nuclear testing. We have more nuclear weapons than anybody. We don't do testing. We've halted it many years ago. But with others doing testing, I think it's appropriate that we do also.
Let's unpack this with William Alberque. He's a senior adjunct fellow at the Pacific Forum, and he previously served as director of NATO's Arms Control, Disarmament and Non-Proliferation Center. Good to be talking to you again, William. Just hearing what Donald Trump said there, it sounds as if the US should carry out testing because other countries are carrying out testing. Is that the only reason?
Well, in terms of technological information from nuclear testing, there's just not much that the United States would get right now out of that. The United States did a number of tests, hundreds of them, across the Cold War, recorded that information. In the meantime, we've developed new supercomputers that can gather tremendous amounts of information without nuclear testing. So I think this really is a political gesture rather than a technological gesture.
Right. I mean, it's interesting you say that because I think the US has conducted something like more than 1,000 tests. I think the last nuclear explosion, full-scale nuclear explosion, was in 1992, and it seems to have conducted so-called subcritical tests after that. Is that correct? Right. And if so, what is the difference between a subcritical test and a full-on nuclear explosion?
Right. A nuclear explosion is defined by the criticality, by the fact that you have fission of uranium or plutonium. And so a subcritical test means testing that you do that does not cause any sort of criticality whatsoever. There's no nuclear yield. There's no explosion. And under the CTBT, under the Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty, countries are allowed to do all sorts of technological work and testing and things like that, as long as it does not result in a nuclear explosion. And so this subcritical testing that the United States and China and Russia have been conducting, and the UK and France, since the CTBT was signed by these countries. But importantly, the CTBT has not entered into force. And so while countries are abiding by this, and there has been no testing other than India, Pakistan, and North Korea, who are not members of the treaty, we still see experiments that are occurring without nuclear explosions in the United States.
While making this announcement about resuming nuclear testing, Donald Trump also said that he would like to see denuclearization. I mean, isn't that a conflicting statement there?
I think what Trump is trying to do is he's trying to mirror what he thinks these other countries are doing. So the United States intelligence folks, some of them have believed that Russia and China have been doing things that are more than subcritical tests, that they've been doing something with very small yields, but actual explosions that have been hidden at their test facilities. And so it could be that Trump is wanting to match them in order to get them into arms control talks. He thinks he has to match his adversary. He doesn't think he can go into a negotiation without leverage. So he may be seeking leverage to force Russia and China into deeper nuclear negotiations.
But is that how they're going to be responding, you think? More tests, or there's going to be more negotiations?
It's really interesting because on the 2nd of October, President Putin said that he thought that someone was preparing nuclear tests. So it may be that we're in a classic trap where both sides are thinking each other are doing things, and so they're advancing based on their estimates of what the other sides are doing, when really they have to have an honest conversation about that. And I think Trump himself has been very stung recently in his talks with Putin, who keeps doing the bait and switch on Ukraine, promising peace and then doing the opposite. So we may be in a point where they're just talking past each other, and they really need to talk very specifically about nuclear testing, about the future of nuclear weapons, and we'll see if President Xi can join in those talks too. Remember, all this comes as President Trump is walking into a meeting with President Xi Jinping in Busan.
One of the legacies of the Cold War, of course, William, were the number of these treaties that prevented the proliferation of nuclear weapons, particularly between, say, Russia and the United States. Am I correct in saying that there is only one treaty now that exists between Russia and the United States, and that expires next year?
That's correct. The New START treaty between the U.S. and Russia is going to end in February. There's no provision within the treaty to extend it, so the two sides would need to agree on something separately. President Putin has suggested that maybe they can extend the limits of the treaty one more year, but the two sides really need to talk, because that would mean we would be the first time since 1972 where we don't have a bilateral limit between the U.S. and the Russians on their nuclear arsenals.
We'll leave it there on that sobering thought for the moment. William Alberque, Senior Adjunct Fellow at the Pacific Forum. Thanks so much.
Thank you.